Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Everyday English Podcast. I'm Sarah, and I'm here with my co host, Michael. Today, we have a really interesting episode for you.
Hi, everyone. Yes, today we're going to help you learn English through storytelling. Sarah has a story to tell about a really bad restaurant experience.
That's right. Storytelling is one of the best ways to practice your listening skills and learn new vocabulary naturally. As I tell this story, you'll hear lots of useful words and phrases about restaurants, food, and dealing with problems.
Exactly. And I'll be asking Sarah questions along the way, just like in a real conversation. So listen carefully, and let's begin the story.
Okay, so this happened about 2 months ago. I was visiting my friend Emma in Chicago, and she was so excited to take me to this new Italian restaurant that had just opened downtown.
Oh, new restaurants are always exciting.
Right. Emma had made a reservation for Saturday night at 7 o'clock. She said the restaurant had amazing reviews online, and the photos looked incredible. The place was called Bella Notte, which means beautiful night in Italian.
That sounds promising. So, what happened when you arrived?
Well, when we walked in, the restaurant looked beautiful. It had dim lighting, candles on every table, and soft Italian music playing in the background. We were both really excited.
Sounds like the perfect atmosphere.
It really was. But then we went to the hostess stand, and that's when the first problem started. Even though we had a reservation, the hostess told us our table wasn't ready yet.
Oh no, how long did you have to wait?
She said it would be just 10 minutes, but we ended up waiting for almost 30 minutes. And the worst part was we were standing in this tiny waiting area near the door, so every time someone came in or left, we got hit with cold air.
Ugh, that's so annoying. And you were dressed up for a nice dinner, right?
Exactly. We were both wearing dresses and high heels, so standing for 30 minutes was really uncomfortable. But we thought, okay, maybe the food will be worth the wait.
Right. Sometimes good restaurants are just really busy. So, what happened when you finally got seated?
Well, they finally called our name and took us to our table. But when we got there, the table was still dirty. There were crumbs and water spots on it, and the previous customer's napkins were still on the floor.
Oh, wow. That's really unprofessional.
I know. The hostess looked embarrassed and quickly wiped down the table with a wet cloth, but honestly, it didn't look very clean even after that. Then she left us with menus and said our waiter would be with us soon.
Let me guess, the waiter took forever to come?
You got it. Another 20 minutes went by. We were so thirsty, and there wasn't even water on the table. We kept looking around for our waiter, but the staff seemed completely overwhelmed.
So at this point, you'd already been there for almost an hour and hadn't even ordered yet?
Exactly. Finally, our waiter came over. He was this young guy who looked completely stressed out. He apologized for the wait and quickly took our drink orders. We both ordered sparkling water and asked for some bread.
Okay, so things started getting better then?
Not really. He brought us regular water instead of sparkling, and when we told him about the mistake, he said they were out of sparkling water. But we had seen other tables with sparkling water bottles.
That's weird. And did you get the bread?
No bread. He said he'd bring it right out, but it never came. After another 15 minutes, we finally got to order our food. I ordered the seafood pasta, and Emma ordered the chicken parmesan.
Those sound like good choices. How long did the food take to arrive?
Another 45 minutes? By this time, we had been at the restaurant for almost 2 hours, and we were starving. When the food finally arrived, I was so relieved. But then I looked at my plate.
Uh-oh, what was wrong with it?
It wasn't seafood pasta at all. They brought me some kind of vegetable pasta instead. and Emma's chicken looked completely overcooked. It was dry and gray-looking. Plus, both of our dishes were barely warm, like they had been sitting under a heat lamp for a long time.
Oh no, so what did you do?
We called our waiter over immediately. When he saw the wrong dish, he looked mortified and said he would fix it right away. But here's the thing. By this point, Emma and I were so frustrated and hungry that we just wanted to leave.
I don't blame you at all. Did you ask to speak to the manager?
Yes, we did. The manager came over and apologized profusely. She offered to comp our entire meal and bring us new dishes, but we told her we just wanted to leave. We had already wasted our whole evening there.
That was probably the right decision. So you didn't have to pay anything?
The manager said we didn't have to pay for the food, but they still charged us for the drinks. We paid $12 for 2 regular waters and left. Then we went to a pizza place down the street, which turned out to have much better service and food.
Well, at least you ended up having a good meal eventually, and you got a great story out of it. That really was a disaster from start to finish.
It really was. Emma and I still laugh about it now. But you know what? It taught us that sometimes it's better to leave a bad situation rather than trying to make it work. We should have left after the 30-minute wait.
That's a great lesson. Now, before we finish, let's go over some of the vocabulary from Sarah's story. This will help our listeners remember the key words and phrases.
Good idea. Let's start with reservation. This means you call a restaurant ahead of time to book a table. For example, I made a reservation for 8 o'clock.
Right, and hostess is the person who greets you when you arrive at a restaurant and shows you to your table.
Then we have wrong order, which means the restaurant brought you different food than what you asked for. And overcooked means the food was cooked too long and became dry or tough.
And finally, comp means the restaurant gives you something for free, usually because of bad service. The manager comped our meal.
Perfect. So, listeners, now it's your turn. Think about a time when you had a bad experience at a restaurant or any other place. Practice telling that story out loud using some of the vocabulary we just reviewed.
Now let's work on pronunciation. Some of the words in Sarah's story can be tricky for English learners. Let's practice them together. First, let's say reservation. Break it down with me. Reservation. The stress is on the third syllable. Reservation.
Overwhelmed. This word describes feeling like you have too much to handle. Overwhelmed. The stress is on the second syllable. Overwhelmed. The restaurant staff seemed overwhelmed that night.
Another important word is apologized. This means to say sorry. Apologized. The stress is on the second syllable. Apologized. The manager apologized for the terrible service. Let's also practice profusely. It means very much or a lot. Profusely. Profusely.
Now let's talk about grammar. You probably noticed that my entire story was told in the past tense. This is very common when telling stories in English. Let me give you some examples from my story. I said Emma had made a reservation. That's past perfect tense, showing something that happened before the main story events.
Exactly. And most of the story used simple past tense. For example, we walked in, we waited, they brought us the wrong food. These are all regular and irregular past tense verbs. Notice how Sarah also used past continuous tense, like we were standing and we were starving, to show ongoing actions in the past.
Let's talk about American dining culture too. What happened at Bellanote was definitely not normal. In most American restaurants, you should expect to wait maybe 5 to 10 minutes past your reservation time, but 30 minutes is unacceptable. Also, tables should always be clean when you're seated, and water should be brought to your table immediately.
That's right. In American culture, good service is extremely important. Waiters should check on you regularly, refill your drinks, and bring your food within a reasonable time, usually 20 to 30 minutes for most dishes. If there are problems, the management should offer solutions like free drinks, discounted meals, or completely comping the bill like they did in Sarah's story.
Now, let's give you some discussion questions to practice. Pause the podcast after each question and try to answer out loud using the vocabulary we've learned. First question: have you ever had to wait a long time at a restaurant? How did you feel, and what did you do?
Second question. What would you do if a restaurant brought you the wrong food? Would you send it back or just accept it? Use phrases like, I would ask the waiter, or I would speak to the manager.
One more question. Describe a perfect restaurant experience. What kind of service do you expect? Think about vocabulary like attentive service, delicious food, or friendly staff. Practice using positive adjectives to describe good experiences too.
Now let's learn some useful phrases for expressing emotions and reactions. In Sarah's story, we heard lots of examples. When she said, "We were so excited," that shows positive emotion. But when she said, "We were so frustrated," that shows negative emotion. Let's practice more emotion words.
That's a great point. In the story, I used mortified to describe how the waiter looked when he realized his mistake. Mortified means extremely embarrassed. I also said I was relieved when the food finally came, which means I felt better because I didn't have to worry anymore. And I described feeling starving, which is an exaggerated way to say very, very hungry.
Let's also look at some idioms and expressions Sarah used. When she said disaster from start to finish, that's a common expression meaning something was bad from the beginning to the end. She also said they wasted their whole evening, which means they spent their time on something that turned out to be not worth it.
Since we're talking about American restaurant culture, let's talk about tipping. In the United States, it's customary to tip your server 15 to 20% of your bill if the service is good. But in our situation at Bella Notte, with such terrible service, many people would leave a much smaller tip or no tip at all. Tipping is how waiters earn most of their money in America.
Here are some polite phrases you can use if you have problems at a restaurant. Instead of saying, "This is wrong," you could say, "Excuse me, I think there might be a mistake with my order." Or instead of, "The service is terrible," you could say, "We've been waiting quite a while. Could you please check on our table?" Being polite usually gets better results.
It's also important to note that different types of restaurants have different expectations. At a fast food restaurant, you don't expect table service. At a casual restaurant, like a family diner, service should be friendly and efficient. But at an upscale restaurant, like Bella Notte claimed to be, you expect excellent service, attention to detail, and high-quality food. The higher the prices, the higher your expectations should be.
Before we finish, let's review some essential restaurant vocabulary. Menu is the list of food and drinks. Appetizer is a small dish you eat before the main course. Entree or main course is the biggest part of your meal. Dessert comes at the end. The check or bill is what you pay. And remember, in American restaurants, you usually seat yourself at casual places, but wait to be seated at nicer restaurants.
Let's do a quick recap of everything we covered today. We learned vocabulary about restaurant experiences, including words like reservation, overwhelmed, mortified, and comp. We practiced pronunciation of challenging words, and we discussed the grammar of storytelling, especially how to use different past tenses effectively. We also talked about American dining culture and tipping customs.
Exactly. And most importantly, we learned how to express emotions and reactions, how to make polite complaints, and useful idioms and expressions. Remember, the key to improving your English is practice. Try to use these new words and phrases in your own conversations. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn.
For homework this week, I want you to practice telling your own story. Think of any experience you've had. It doesn't have to be at a restaurant. Maybe it was at a store, at the airport, or at school. Practice telling the story using past tense verbs, emotion words, and some of the expressions we learned today. Try to make your story about 2 or 3 minutes long.
Also, don't forget that you can practice these conversation skills in real life. Next time you're at a restaurant, try using some of the polite phrases we discussed. Practice pronunciation while you're walking or driving. And remember, you can always visit our website for more listening exercises, vocabulary lists, and practice activities related to today's episode.
Remember, learning English is a journey, not a destination. Every conversation you have, every story you tell, and every mistake you make is helping you become more fluent and confident. You're already doing great by listening to podcasts like this one. Keep up the excellent work, and don't give up on your English learning goals.
And remember, storytelling is one of the best ways to improve your English speaking skills. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. If you enjoyed this story, check out our English Listening Stories playlist for more episodes like this one.
Thanks for listening to the Everyday English Podcast. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Michael. See you next time.